thank you for joining us today as we present our risk assessment for the Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail project. Our team, led Jatin, Chris, Brandon, and myself, Mark, have conducted a thorough analysis of the key risks associated with this transformative infrastructure initiative. The purpose of this presentation is to provide a structured summary of our report outlining why we selected the ISO 31000 Risk Management Framework, our key findings, and the strategic recommendations necessary to mitigate potential challenges. Large-scale projects like this require a proactive approach to risk management to ensure long-term viability and success. Through our assessment, we have identified critical risks spanning technology, security, and operational challenges, factors that will shape the project's effectiveness and sustainability. With that, let's begin by setting the stage with an overview of the project and its significance. Risk management is a critical component of any large-scale infrastructure project, ensuring potential challenges are identified, assessed, and addressed to maximize success and long-term sustainability. For a project as ambitious as the Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail, an effective risk management framework is essential to navigate the complexities in planning, construction, and operational phases. This high-speed rail system, inspired by successful models like France's TGV, aims to connect Australia's two largest cities, offering a faster and more effective alternative to air and road travel. Trains will reach speeds of 320 kilometers an hour, traversing a diverse landscape that includes coastal regions, farmland, and bushland. However, the project scope brings significant engineering challenges, requiring meticulous planning and execution. Beyond the technical aspects, the high-speed rail (HSR) project presents an economic opportunity, promoting regional growth and sustainability, yet it also introduces substantial risk. The construction phase faces potential cost overruns, resource shortages, and environmental compliance hurdles, while operational risks include fluctuating passenger demands, ongoing maintenance costs, technological advancements, and competition from emerging transport solutions. Without effective risk management, these challenges could undermine the project's success. Risk management is essential for large-scale infrastructure projects like the Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail. Given the complexity and long-term nature of this project, a structured risk management approach ensures that uncertainty are proactively identified, assessed, and mitigated. ISO 31000 is an internationally recognized standard that provides principles and guidelines for risk management. It is particularly relevant to infrastructure projects due to its emphasis on integration, structured processes, and continual improvement. This framework ensures that risk management is embedded at all levels of the project, planning, execution, and operations. Key principles of ISO 31000. Integration. Risk management must be an integral part of decision-making across all project phases. Structure and comprehensiveness. A systematic approach ensures the risks are consistently identified and addressed. Customization. The framework adapts to the specific needs and challenges of a given project. Continual improvement. Risk management is an ongoing process that evolves with the project. Infrastructure projects like the HSR operate in a dynamic environment where risks evolve over time. Adaptive management, a core principle within ISO 31000, allows for continuous monitoring, learning, and adjustments to new risks as they emerge. This approach ensures that risk mitigation strategies remain effective throughout the project's lifecycle. The risk assessment methodology used in this report aligns with the T7 Risks and Uncertainty Assessment Guidelines from the Australian Transport Assessment and Planning Guidelines 2021. This categorization framework classifies risks based on their likelihood, severity, and impact on the project's objectives, ensuring a comprehensive evaluation. The T7 model also integrates uncertainty factors, recognizing that infrastructure projects must remain flexible in response to external changes. By applying ISO 31000 and the T7 guidelines, we establish a structured and adaptive risk management approach, ensuring that risks are not only identified, but actively managed throughout the project's lifecycle. Now over to Chris, who will take us through some of the risks. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Mark. Extreme risks are those that combine a high likelihood of occurrence with severe consequences, such as a system-wide operation failure, widespread environmental damage, or financial collapse. Proactively addressing these risks is critical to prevent cascading failures that could undermine a project's viability and reputation. As part of our risk assessment, we identified 4 risks as extreme. Revenue variability. High-speed rail projects are capital intensive and profitability often hinges on consistent passenger numbers. If demand fluctuates due to economic downturns, different modes of transport, or demographic changes, revenue streams could decline sharply. This poses a risk not only to debt repayment and operation, but also to public trust in the project's long-term value. River crossing and aquatic ecosystems. The construction of bridges, culverts, tunnels can disrupt natural water flow, increase sedimentation, and introduce pollutants. This then endangers the biodiversity, which without careful planning, ecosystems could face long-term damage. Integration challenges with conventional rail. A lack of proper alignment between two systems could result in bottlenecks, severe disruptions, and a reduced operational capacity. Integration challenges can also lead to safety issues if signaling or control systems are incompatible. Cybersecurity risks. With a heavy dependence on automated system for train operations, communications, and passenger services, any cyber intrusion could disrupt operations or com- compromise sensitive data. High risks present significant threat, but with slightly lower severity or likelihood compared to the extreme risks. They require proactive management and continuous monitoring to prevent any escalation to extreme. As part of our risk assessment, we identified 7 risks rated at high. Changes in government. The HSR program may not align with the agenda of the incoming government. Political transitions often result in shifting priorities, which could lead to funding cuts, delays, or policy changes that affect the project's scope. Worker safety. Construction on long geographically diverse routes introduce risks such as equipment-related accidents, heat stress, and limited access to emergency services. Cost overrun. Unforeseen increase in costs could lead to financial strain, affecting project delivery and reducing stakeholder confidence. Cost overruns could arise from delays, design changes, or material shortages and inflation. Soil erosion and land degradation. Ongoing construction requiring vegetation removal will expose topsoil, increasing the risk of soil erosion and land degradation. If not managed properly, this could lead to a long-term environmental damage. Compliance with environmental regulations. Maintaining compliance with environmental regulations and laws is critical to avoiding fines, project delays, and reputational damage. Knowledge gaps in high-speed rail technology. Initially, the project may lack the experience and technical knowledge that other countries with established HSR systems possess. This knowledge gap could lead to operational inefficiencies. Technological obsolescence risk. There is a risk that some proposed equipment may become obsolete before the project is complete or within its intended lifespan. Rapid technological advancements in rail systems could render certain technologies outdated. I'll now hand over to Brendan, who'll discuss medium and low risks.
Thanks, Chris. Today I'll be discussing the medium and low risk ratings in the risk evaluation process for the Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail project. We'll explore what these ratings mean, why they've been assigned, and how these risks will be managed effectively. First, let's define medium and low risk categories. A medium rated risk is one that has a moderate likelihood and consequence. While it is not critical, it still requires monitoring and mitigation strategies to ensure that it does not escalate into a higher risk. These risks are typically tolerable if managed effectively. On the other hand, a low rated risk is one that has low likelihood of occurring and would have a minor impact if it did. These risks are generally handled within normal operational processes and do not require any additional resources beyond standard management strategies. Now let's look at some of the risks that have been assessed as medium and why they've been given this rating. One such risk is change in a public opinion. While public perception can influence major infrastructure projects, this risk has been rated as a medium because extensive community consultation will be conducted prior to the project's commencement, ensuring concerns are addressed early. Similarly, land acquisition has been categorized as medium. This process has been carefully planned with acquisitions occurring before construction begins, reducing the chance of delays and large-scale disputes. Other risks that fall under the medium category include budgetary constraints and insufficient fundings. While government funding is expected to support the project from the outset, budget adjustments may be needed as costs fluctuate. However, strict financial planning and oversight will prevent these risks from becoming major threats. Public perception of environmental damage is also considered a medium risk, as concerns could arise if unexpected environmental impacts occur. The mitigation strategy here involves public engagement, transparency, and compliance with environmental protection regulations. When we look at the low risk category, we see risks such as climate-related risks, inflation and interest rates, and market competition. Climate-related risks are rated low because while environmental conditions may change over time, their impact on the specific rail project will be minimal. Inflation and interest rates have also been rated as a low because government funding will shield the project from financial fluctuations in the banking sector. Additionally, market competition is considered as a low risk because the high-speed rail service will primarily compete with existing rail networks rather than directly challenging air travel or other transport modes. Finally, let's discuss passenger screening and criminal evasion, another medium-rated risk. While there is a possibility of security concerns, working closely with law enforcement and complying with Australia's Privacy Act of 1988 ensures that security issues will be handled appropriately, preventing major disruptions. In summary, while medium and low-rated risks are not as urgent as extreme or high risks, they still require careful monitoring and strategic mitigation efforts. Addressing these risks proactively ensures that we do not escalate and affect the project's success. I'll now hand you over to Led, who will discuss risk evaluation.
Thanks, Brandon. Today, I'll be discussing the risk evaluation process for the Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail project. As shown on the slide, risk evaluation is important because it helps us identify, assess, and prioritize risks, ensuring potential threats do not derail the project's success. Without a structured approach, large projects can suffer from cost overruns, delay, regulatory hurdles, and public opposition, to name a few. We have seen this risk play out in the real-world projects. For example, the UK High Speed 2 project faced budget overruns and political instability, leading to major sections being cancelled. Similarly, with the California high-speed rail project that has struggled with funding and land acquisition issues that caused significant delays. Both cases highlight that why proactive risk evaluation is important. Again, as shown, risks are rated based on their likelihood and impacts that determine whether they should be monitored, mitigated, avoided, or accepted. So by following the ISO 31000 risk management principle, we ensure that risk evaluation is systematic, consistent, and aligned with best practice, keeping the Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail project on track, within budget, and successfully delivered. Next slide. Now, let's have a look on how we assess and categorize risks. As shown on the slide, the ISO 31000 framework assesses risk based on likelihood and impact. By using this process, risks are categorized as low, medium, high, or extreme that determine our response strategy. For example, cost overrun. It is highly likely to occur, but it has a moderate impact, so they are classified or deemed to be high risk, so it requires financial controls. The next one will be the major cybersecurity attack. It is unlikely to occur, but it could have severe consequences, making it an extreme risk, so it requires strong mitigation measures. We also apply the Australian Transport Assessment and Planning, or the ATAP 2021 T7 guideline that consider 5 key impact areas, as shown on the slide, which ranging from the safety and environment, legal and compliance, budget and financials, time and schedule, and last but not least, reputation and public trust. So by combining the ISO 31000 and the ATAP 2021, we ensure that risks are evaluated consistently and managed strategically, allowing for a more resilient project outcome. Next slide. So once the risks have been evaluated, the next step is to categorize them, which help us to determine the appropriate management approach. As shown on the slide, the risk categorization follows a likelihood, severity, and uncertainty model that consider the 3 factors. Again, likelihood, severity, and uncertainty factors. The final risk rating determines the required action as displayed on the slide. Real-world example from this project, as I mentioned before, the cybersecurity. It is unlikely, but again, it has severe consequences, so they are categorized as an extreme risk. So it requires strict security protocols. The next one is a different one, market competition from airline and road transport. It is moderately likely, but it has a manageable impact, so it falls under medium risk. So it means that monitoring is required. The next one is worker safety and labor dispute. It is likely and it could impact project timelines. So they are high risk, require strong workforce management and strategy. So the key takeaway again is shown on the screen. Risk evaluation, it ensures that Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail project remains financially viable, operationally sound, and resilient against disruptions. By applying a structured risk management framework, we minimize unexpected challenges, improve response strategy, and strengthen project sustainability. Ultimately, a proactive approach prevents risk from escalating and ensuring the project meets its goal efficiently. Thank you, and now I'll pass it to Jatin to discuss about the risk treatment option and to summarize the whole project. Thank you.
Thank you, Led. As we've now looked at risk evaluation, let's dig a little deeper and understand the various risk treatment options. In this section of the presentation, we will only look at extreme and high risk treatment options. The remaining risk treatment options are individually reviewed in the report. Let's firstly look at extreme risks. So extreme risks, as earlier mentioned in the presentation, are defined as those that can have a major impact on the project and have a possible likelihood of occurring. Therefore, extreme risks need immediate attention and oversight from executive team and must be addressed. Let's look at the first extreme risk identified, which is revenue variability. The treatment for this risk is to utilize adaptive forecasting and diversification of revenue streams, such as freight transportation and station-based commercial opportunities to mitigate revenue fluctuation. The second risk within this extreme risk category is river crossing and aquatic ecosystems. The treatment for this risk is to ensure adaptation of construction schedules and pollution control measures to align with seasonal aquatic life cycles and ongoing water quality assessment. The third risk within this category is integration of high-speed rail with conventional rail systems. The treatment for this risk is to develop a scalable integration plan, regularly updating operational protocols to incorporate future technological advancements. The fourth and last risk within the extreme risk category is cybersecurity risk. The treatment for this risk is to deploy adaptive cybersecurity framework with real-time threat intelligence and machine learning tools to counter evolving vulnerabilities. Having now looked at extreme risk and their treatments, let's now move on to high risk. High risk, as earlier mentioned in the presentation, are defined as those which have a major to moderate impact on the project and have a possible, unlikely, or rare likelihood of occurring. Therefore, high risk need attention and must have mitigation strategies and a detailed response plan in place to be able to be addressed properly should they occur. As we did for extreme risk, let's now have a look at risk treatment options for all high risk identified. Let's start with the first high risk identified, which is change in government. We believe, though the impact is major, the likelihood is unlikely. Therefore, the ideal treatment for this risk is to secure multi-party agreement with legally binding commitments to ensure long-term project continuity, adjusting project priorities to align with government agendas. Let's now look at the second high risk identified, which is on the social spectrum, that is, worker safety and labour disputes. The impact of this would be major, however, the likelihood is rare. As such, the treatment is to implement adaptive safety protocols and dispute resolution mechanisms, whilst updating working conditions based on real-time feedback and incident data. The third risk identified within the high-risk category is cost overrun, which would have a major impact, however, an unlikely likelihood given the rigorous planning, risk assessment, and contingency funds in place. The treatment involves closely monitoring project costs in real time using predictive analytics, adjust budgets dynamically, and use contingency funds tailored to updated risk assessments. The fourth and fifth risk within this category both pertain to the environmental concern. Firstly, soil erosion and land degradation, and secondly, compliance with environmental regulations. Both the risks would have major impact should they transpire. However, the likelihood of such occurrence is unlikely in both risks. Therefore, given the impact and likelihood, these risks can be managed from start by ensuring compliance with environmental regulations in the planning phase and ensuring essential environmental protection systems are built into the design, which would limit the likelihood of such occurrence. The sixth and seventh risk within this category both relate to technological concerns. Firstly, knowledge gap in high-speed rail technology, and secondly, technological obsolescence risks. Both risks would have a moderate impact if they occur, and the likelihood of such occurrence is possible in both risks. Therefore, given the impact and likelihood, it is crucial to collaborate with international experts and adapt training programs to incorporate new technologies and lessons learned globally. Lastly, regular review of emerging technologies such as autonomous transportation system and designing infrastructure to allow seamless upgrades. Given that we have now reviewed the risk management framework, understood the wide variety of risks that this project possesses, conducted a risk evaluation, and looked at risk treatment options, it is important to share our final thoughts. To sum up, the Melbourne to Sydney high-speed rail project represents a significant milestone in the Australian transportation infrastructure. It offers an efficient alternative to air and road transportation, all while enhancing regional accessibility and connectivity, helping reduce congestion, and driving economic growth. Given the scale and complexity of this project, we've implemented a robust risk management framework, ISO 31000, which helps address exposure to various risks across the political, economical, environmental, technological, social, and security spectrum. ISO 31000 framework addresses this exposure through creating a structured approach to risk assessment, which enables identification, analysis, and helps devise strategies based on factors which consider likelihood and severity. Ultimately, the success of this project relies heavily on risk assessment through evaluation and treatment of risk throughout the life of the project. Furthermore, a continued commitment to deliver the project ahead of or on time is essential, as this project will enhance the Australian transportation landscape for decades to come. With that, we would like to thank everyone for their time, and we look forward to addressing any questions you may have. Thank you.